Okay, okay. Thank you. So, शुरू करते हैं. Okay, colleagues. Today we'll start the discussion on waves in plasmas. So, what I've written down here is basically the fourth equation in the Maxwell's equations, which is basically the Ampere's law. So, what I've written down here, this could be actually written as dou d by dou t, which is the displacement current. So displacement current, basically displacement is given as epsilon naught k dot E, where k is basically the dielectric constant, dielectric tensor. So you can consider even plasma as a dielectric medium. So that is one way, one approach to study the waves that are excited in the plasma. So consider plasma as a dielectric medium and then see how you can generate oscillations which can be propagating. Okay, so basically that is the principle, but there are various approaches by which people have been analyzing waves in plasmas. So one approach is basically to consider plasma as a dielectric medium. So for example, there are textbooks like Kenro Miyamoto, elementary plasma physics and fusion. So basically, in his book, he follows this type of approach. But we will not follow this approach. We will follow the approach which is followed in the book called Bittencourt का जो book है. We'll follow that kind of approach, which is quite straightforward and easy to analyze the plasma so that you can take various conditions, cold plasma, then warm plasma, and then hot plasma. So it becomes quite systematic. So I have followed this approach. You can as well follow the other approach also, like assuming the plasma as a dielectric medium, and then try to derive the dispersion relation. So this is done because the plasma is a non-uniform medium. It's anisotropic, which is not same in all directions. Also, it's a dispersive medium. So it is something like a prism. So it breaks the light or the electromagnetic waves into different frequencies and wavelengths. So it has a dispersive um, character. So you can also have a refractive index for a plasma, which is basically n kc by omega, which is basically c by omega k, which is the phase velocity. So it is the refractive index. This is the refractive index for the plasma. So basically, velocity of light in vacuum to the velocity of light in the medium, which is nothing but the phase velocity. So this is v by v phi. So the phase velocity is basically equal to omega by k. So you can define a refractive index for the plasma. So what we will try to do now is we'll follow the approach in which we'll not consider it as a dielectric medium, but instead what we will do is we'll start with the Maxwell's equations and solve simultaneously the fluid equations. So fluid equations we have already discussed in our previous lectures. So that is how the particle motion is described. So you'll couple the two Maxwell's equations and the fluid equations and then solve them. So basically what you are trying to do is get a dispersive relation. Basically omega as a function of k. So this is dispersion. So that will tell you the various types of waves excited inside the plasma. So depending upon the plasma, whether it's cold plasma or warm plasma or hot plasma, you'll see that these oscillations will now transport energy. So it becomes a wave which transports energy into the medium. So essentially, we are going to start with the approach of taking the Maxwell's equations and simultaneously solving the fluid equations along with these coupled. So this approach is followed in Bittencourt book. So I'm just following the Bittencourt. Though actually, when we started working in plasma physics in IPR, we used to follow Miyamoto more often. So there the approach was to consider plasma as a dielectric medium, and from that you'll see that that approach is also good enough. But the thing is a little confusing, sometimes little confusing. So it is not really systematic. It is for people who are already familiar with the waves in plasmas. So for a beginner, basically, I think Bittencourt approach is much better. So also in our earlier discussions, we always said that the charge separation field, basically the E tilde, we had neglected, but here one of the conditions is that we'll take these um, charge separation field to be finite. So this is one thing. Other thing is that we are now taking just the opposite case, that is high frequency. In the earlier discussion, we said high frequency things we were not interested, and charge separation fields are much lower. So therefore, the plasma dimensions were much larger than the dpi length. So here we are taking just the opposite condition for our discussions on waves, and also we'll we have a condition where we the first thing we are going to start with is with cold plasma. We'll discuss first for cold plasma, then we'll go over to warm. Basically, we are saying P is NKT. We are saying temperature is very low in the first case. Then we'll consider temperature as quite high. High. We'll say compared to what? And third case, we'll take it as hot plasma. Actually, hot plasma we will not be considering. We'll not be discussing about this part because things become really complicated there, where basically you are trying to heat the plasma to very high temperatures. That is fusion temperatures. So this medium now starts exciting all types of waves, Bernstein wave and things like that, which basically is not part of your syllabus. So what we'll consider only the cold and warm plasma. In cold plasma again, because temperature is low, so basically the V thermal is given as see half mv is 80. So V thermal thermal velocity of the electrons is 2 kT by m, which is root of that. So in the cold plasma approximation, what we are assuming is that V thermal, which is basically 2 kT by m root of, because temperature is low, we are saying this is quite low. And compared to the phase velocity. So what we are saying is basically that phase velocity omega by k is larger than V thermal. So this is the case that we are considering. That is because temperature is low. Because temperature is low, the average thermal velocity of the electrons are much lower compared to the phase velocity. So therefore, so that is the condition which we'll take first, and then we'll see what kind of waves or oscillations are generated here, and whether those waves will, the oscillations will actually propagate inside the plasma or not, or when we go from cold plasma to the warm plasma, you'll see that these oscillations will now start carrying energy into the plasma, which means the oscillations will get converted into waves. So we'll see those conditions. So basically, we are first considering cold plasma. Hot plasmas we are not going to consider. So it's going to be very complicated, and it's out of your syllabus. So we'll consider only the cold plasma and the warm plasma. The case where V thermal is much larger than phase velocity, this condition is the hot plasma. Basically, that we are not going to consider. That will be important when you talk about RF wave heating and things like that. Heating of plasmas using waves. And also, one thing is we are assuming it's cold plasma, and also all our mathematical analysis is based on plane wave. So we are considering only the linear case, no non-linearity. So once you start putting in non-linearity, you'll see that there will some sort of funny things happening inside the plasma. So those things will maybe towards the end we'll be discussing about what happens when you consider non-linearity. But for the present analysis, what we'll say is that we'll take only the plane waves. So essentially, any oscillation is basically given as exponential of ik minus I omega t. So any variation, any fluctuation is based basically spatial variation and time variation of the fluctuations is given by this, which means it's a plane wave approximation. And also we'll consider only the electron motion. We'll say that ion motions are negligible. So basically Ui is 0. Velocity of the ions are, so they are almost stationary compared to the velocity of the electrons. So these are things which you have to keep in mind when we do this analysis. So it's a linear thing that we are talking about, no non-linearity. Non-linearity will make things little more complicated. Anyway, towards the end, probably we'll discuss that one also. So this theory basically is in textbooks you will see that they are written as Appleton Hartree theory for waves in cold plasma. So basically, this is the theory that we are talking about. This whole treatment sometimes it is called magnetoionic. Magnetoionic theory. Okay? And also there is some uh, part will include from the hydromagnetic extension also. So this theory plus the hydromagnetic extension. So now let us get into the actual theory and then see how we will analyze it in mathematical terms, how we will come to get various waves inside the plasma. So now basic equations for the magnetoionic theory. Basic equations. We are assuming cold plasma and also only the electron motions we are including. We are not including the ion motion. So the two hydrodynamic variables are basically n, which is a function of r and t. This is the number density of electrons, and then the average velocity u as a function of r and t, velocity of the electrons. Now these two factors, these two parameters basically follow the equation of continuity, basically which is given as dou n by dou t plus or we can take this as so these two variables follow the equation of continuity. So that is one thing very important. In addition, we'll write the equation of motion now for the electrons. So I have to rub this part. Equation of motion again you have written down in the our previous lectures, you know. Q P plus U cross V. And then we have the collision term. We had actually gradient of P, and gradient of V we have made it 0 because we are considering cold plasma, and P is basically NKT, and because the plasma is cold, KT is small, negligible. Therefore, there is no gradient of pressure. Whereas this is coming through collisions. Nu is a collision frequency. So collisions we have taken into account. So now we have to couple it with the Maxwell's equations. So we have the Maxwell's equations. Then we have so they are the. So now we have to couple these two, the fluid equations with the Maxwell's equations, and then solve for the. We get a wave equation. From that we can derive various waves for different conditions. So because we have assumed plane wave solutions, so basically if you see the variation in the magnetic field, basically given as V0, which is unperturbed part, and this is the perturbed part. Similarly, you have got density, which is N0 plus N1. So this is the perturbed part, unperturbed part. So any of these things, any of this function, we have R of theta, the R of t. So any fluctuations in a quantity, any of these quantities can be given as unperturbed quantity plus the perturbation in the space and time. Now here K is a wave number. Omega is the frequency. Now, because we said we are not interested in the nonlinear nonlinear evolutions, so therefore the term will ensure that, and these two terms, you'll make sure that no nonlinear terms are utilized. So perturbation in one of them is possible, or you can have u1 cross b0. One of them has to be, otherwise, if both are u1 cross b1, both are perturbed quantities, it becomes non-zero. It will be a small contribution which will not be interested right now. So also from this you'll see that any this is basically given as I K, and dou by dou t is minus omega I omega. So this basically we are going to put into the Maxwell's equations. So that is the linearity that we are talking about. So we have converted all the differential equations into algebraic equations. So therefore handling becomes much simpler and neglecting all second order terms. Now let us write down how this is going to modify the Maxwell's equations. So I omega so the Maxwell's equations become this, but just putting that this is just actually given as ik and dou by dou t is minus I omega. I've just put this into the Maxwell equations. Now actually you can derive a dispersion relation for the wave propagation in cold electron plasma. So again, in the first case, let us say that V0 is 0. So there is no external magnetic field. So it is not a magnetized plasma. So there is no external magnetic field to start with. We'll then put that and then again see how the things get modified. So now the equation becomes U is minus E by so there is one equation. And then the second equation is this one. So one equation is this, the second equation is this. So from this, actually, you can actually sometimes it's a good idea to write the electric field and the magnetic field as longitudinal electric field and parallel transverse, basically with respect to k. K is the propagation vector. The waves travel in the k direction. So longitudinal along k, it is electric field is EL, and transverse to that is basically this. You should not confuse between with respect to B. Also, we can have, which is basically parallel and perpendicular. So with respect to the magnetic field, this is with respect to the propagation of the wave. Now let us write the equations in terms of the two quantities, longitudinal electric field and transverse electric field, which is with respect to the wave propagation direction. Basically, E is EL plus ET. T is a transverse, longitudinal. So the equation basically is K is 0, that is 1. Now for this, if you can write down equation now for the longitudinal component of the electric field and the transverse component separately. So let us write down that part. From that, we'll get what are the various oscillations or waves produced along the wave direction or perpendicular, transverse to it. So longitudinal component, that will have an equation of this kind. So this is one equation. Similarly, I can write for the transverse component. So that is given as they are the two components of the electric field. So from these equations, we can get the dispersion relation. So one of them basically is omega square plus 1 plus I. So this is one of the equations from this. So essentially what this tells you is that assuming that there are no collisions, if there are no collisions, this is 0. So therefore this is going to give you in the longitudinal mode, you'll see omega square being equal to omega p square. So these are nothing but electron oscillations. You're neglecting, you're making it nu equal to 0, which is no collisions. If there are no collisions, you'll see that there are oscillations. So electrons will now oscillate in the plasma medium. So if there's a small charge separation, the electrons will get, there's an electric field, so that will act on the electrons, and the electrons will start getting accelerated. And when they get accelerated, they'll overshoot the ions. And once they overshoot, there's a restoring force which brings the electrons back. So that is how these electrons keep oscillating. It is just an oscillation, there is no wave, because we have assumed that the plasma is cold. But when we go to the next case where plasma we assume it to be warm, where the thermal velocities are of the order of the phase velocity, there we'll see that these oscillations will now transport energy into the plasma, which means there is a wave generated. So these waves will carry energy inside the plasma. So essentially you have got the plasma oscillations as one of the conditions for the longitudinal component. So similarly you can show for the transverse component. So this component will basically give you another dispersion relation, which is given as omega square this is what you get from the transverse mode. What we got from the longitudinal mode was this. So again we have to say that nu is much smaller. Nu by omega is much smaller than 1. So from that we'll see that the transferred, this becomes Kc squared is equal to omega square minus omega p. So this is if you neglect the collisions. So I think we'll continue with the next already 40 minutes. So I think we'll stop here and we'll discuss in the next class about what is the role of collisions. We'll put collisions and then see how the equations get modified. And also when we go to the next case where plasma, will take it as warm plasmas. So how that is going to modify the whole scenario. Okay, so that is about waves in plasmas for today. So the other topic that I had to discuss with you was basically, which is not part of your syllabus, is something quite interesting. It's called nuclear synthesis. I think you people are familiar of how sun and various stars, they synthesize elements. So also you must be coming across some of your senior members, like grandfather or grandmother, saying that you had influence of a particular star. So it is very true, because our sun is not going to produce elements which are beyond iron. The elements produced beyond iron are very, very small. So it has to be the elements that you possess in your body which are beyond iron. There are some heavy elements also present inside your body. So how did you get this element into your body? Because there is an influence of some other stars, not the sun. Because sun cannot produce these, they cannot synthesize these elements. Some of the elements beyond iron, and that is because like low energy, low Z, elements can be synthesized by fusion, and high Z elements you can get through fission process. So, but you will see that the moment you go to iron, once the star starts producing iron, iron will absorb energy. It will not give out energy. So, which means the pressure is decreasing. Pressure is the one which is balanced by the gravitational force. So, if there's no pressure produced, once you start producing iron, there's no pressure. NKT is zero because it is absorbing energy rather than releasing energy. So, therefore, what happens is there is a gravitational collapse. So, such a star cannot survive. Once it starts producing iron, iron is like a poison for these stars. Once they start producing iron, that absorbs energy rather than releasing energy. So pressure continuously keeps decreasing. Once the pressure decreases, basically it's a stable element, stable medium, because there is a, in that system you have pressure developed because of heating or the fusion reactions going on in the core, and that is balanced by the gravitational collapse. So the two will balance, and that is how the sun or any star has a particular dimension. But once you start, you don't produce power pressure, you'll see that there will be a collapse. Unless there's a pressure, there's nothing to balance the system. So it's very important. So therefore, iron is something like a poison for all these stars. So because you can neither produce it through fusion nor through fission. Once it is produced, it will absorb energy. It's an endothermic reaction. It will not release energy, it will absorb energy. So absorb energy means you are not producing enough pressure. So once you don't have pressure, the gravitational force will take over. It will collapse. The whole system will collapse. So that is one argument. The other thing is, basically, you must have seen how elements are synthesized in a star. you'll see that these, if you see the relative abundance versus the mass number, you'll see that you go from low and then go like that. So these are all even elements. These are all odd elements. So why do you get the abundance of this kind? All even elements, you'll see the abundance is quite high. And odd elements, Z is odd. Their abundances are much lower compared to the ones which are having even. That is because in the fusion process, you've got alpha particles more. Alpha particles basically He4 2. So there are lots of alpha particles produced. So these alpha particles will absorb. So that is how you get 2, 4, 6, 8 like that. That is because alpha particles are getting absorbed and you are generating more and more elements, different elements, by absorption of alpha particles, fusion of alpha particles. So there's a nuclear reactions going on between alpha particles and the various elements generated inside the synthesized in the star. So that is the reason why you see abundance of this kind. Even are higher, odds are lower. You'll see this is all sodium and things like that. All these are all even ones. Calcium, all those things will be having higher abundance. Also, our sun, see, to produce elements beyond iron, below iron is fine. You can produce synthesize through alpha particle reactions, nuclear reactions induced by alpha particles. So that is how they absorb into various elements and generate new elements. But once you have crossed iron, beyond that, the process will change now. It is not no any more alpha particle induced reactions. They are basically neutron capture and beta decay. So in the below iron, you have alpha particle induced reactions. Above Z of 26 or 30, above this you have by neutron capture and followed by beta decay. That is how you produce elements beyond iron. But for that, you should have enough neutrons. If you don't have enough neutrons, you are not going to produce elements beyond iron. So that is the reason why I said sun cannot produce. Our sun cannot produce elements in large quantities beyond iron. So you need stars which are at least 4-5 times heavier than sun, which has more population of neutrons. Because to produce elements beyond Z is equal to 30, you need more neutrons. So now you have two processes. One is called the S process, slow process, and then rapid process. Slow process, in this what happens, there is a neutron capture, but then there is a competition between beta decay and neutron capture. So you will not be able to produce enough, you cannot synthesize more and more elements. Only when there is a huge amount of neutrons present. That comes only through some supernova explosion and things like that. Unless you have suddenly a lot of neutrons present, you cannot have neutron capture dominating over the beta decay. Otherwise, the beta decay will dominate over depending upon the reaction rates. So that is how elements are synthesized in sun or any star. So when people say that certain elements, say mercury, is available in your body, so that mercury is coming from which sun cannot produce. So therefore, our earth, if that element cannot be found in earth, because the element number, the amount of element produced will depend upon the source, that is the sun. So somehow there's an influence long back because of some reactions going on. So some of the heavier stars produce these elements, and these elements are thrown out of these stars. That is how they travel towards various planets, and that is how Earth gets some of these elements. So that is how you suddenly find out there are some high Z elements present inside your body. So there's an influence of some star other than the sun. So this is very scientific actually. It is not, say, in the Hindu mythology, people say that you are influenced by the some star. So it's basically true because of the nuclear reaction process. So, so this is something very interesting. How elements below iron are synthesized, how elements beyond iron are synthesized in various stars. So, some interesting topic. I can share some information on this. Very interesting. TED talks are available on synthesize how elements are synthesized. So, stellar nuclear synthesis is a very interesting nuclear physics process. So maybe your next semester, when we have nuclear physics, we'll discuss some of these topics. But in the meantime, I can share some information about this with you people. Okay. So, any feedback from you people? Yeah, any one of you? I'll share some interesting information about the stellar nucleosynthesis. Very interesting features are there. It's just not the physics part of it, but the other interesting things, like sometimes chemistry is also very important. So I urge that you read some of these information, which is very useful. And there are lots of TED talks. I think I'll share some of those things also with you. Anything that you people would like to add or want me to add? Yeah. So I think we'll stop here. If there are no more comments from you people, we'll meet again. Maybe not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Okay, I think I'm calling it a day.